Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shane Sarley, the Mayor of Greater Shepparton, and I welcome you to another community information session regarding the flood activities within our region. I'd also like to welcome the many community members we have in attendance today at Riverlinks Westside, so thank you so much for being here this afternoon. Before we go any further, we, Greater Shepparton City Council, acknowledge the Yorta Yorta peoples of the land which now comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay our respect to their tribal elders, we celebrate their continuing culture, and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. I'd also like to acknowledge my fellow councillors here tonight, Deputy Mayor Anthony Brophy, Councillor Jeff Dobson, Councillor Greg James, Councillor Dinny Adam, and Councillor Seema Abdullah. And Councillor Sam Spinks is here as well. Thank you for being here, as well as our state representatives, Wendy Lovell and Susanna Sheed. Thank you for being here. Look, this is a very similar format to the last information session. Greater Shepparton Chief Executive Officer Peter Harriott, who is sitting next to me on my right here, will chair the information session, and as well as hearing from the many key agencies that we have on the table here as well this afternoon. Peter will also give a sort of more detail about the format of tonight, but it will be very similar to how it was last time. We'll be having questions from those in the room, as well as ones coming through on our live stream as well. It's all about giving you that confidence about sort of where we're heading and making you feel comfortable with the recovery process. So without further ado, I will now hand over to Peter Harriott.
Thanks, Shane. We have got a big panel, but the presentations will be fairly brief because we prefer to get to questions and answer those. Lisa's doing Ausland today, and she's got a big task, and we'll need to have a break during the presentation today at strategic times. So I just remind everybody to attempt to speak slowly and pronounce your presentation clearly. Yes, questions. There'll be roving mics at the end. We'll get them to you as easily as we can. And we do need to stick to time. Every person on this panel is very important in the response and recovery, which is well underway, still underway, and there's lots of work to be done. But tonight's very important to answer your questions as well. So without further ado, I'll go to our first presenter tonight, Ray Jasper, Regional Manager, Northern Region for the Victorian SES, to give us an overview of what's happening. Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Peter. Look, to give an overview, and you've probably all seen the river. So the river is now about 10.49 in a moderate flood from the peak of 12.06. Look, it is going down slowly. We acknowledge that simply because there is so much water in the catchment. So it's not like sometimes we see normal flood, it goes up fairly quickly and comes down. This one has held its peak and is certainly going down slowly. Saying that, we've got rapid impact crews. So that's impact assessment crews, certainly in Shepparton and Mooroopna, working through, I guess, picking up the inundation. So the initial impact crews, picking up the initial inundation of residential properties as well as critical infrastructure. And then feeding that back to the councils and other key stakeholders so we can start that relief and recovery process moving forward. Key things I'd like to say is, I guess, we're still watching the weather tomorrow. We still are expecting that 20 mils of rain. The concern we've got is the I guess, thunderstorm activity. So thunderstorms are predicted over most of Victoria. Those thunderstorms in the catchment can produce quite intense rain for a short burst of period, depending on where they fall. So if they fall, I guess, in any of the Goulburn catchment above stream of Shepparton and Mooroopna, you may see a rise in the river. We're still expecting even the rise will still stay at the moderate level. It won't get back to the major level of 11 metres, but just be wary. If it does rise, it's because we've either had a shower in the Shepparton area or a shower with intense rain upstream. So we are monitoring it, we are managing it. The ICC is still open in Shepparton 24/7 with over 400 people day and night shift working to support this operation as we move forward. So just be where we are monitoring it. If it does change, you'll get a warning from us in the mix above the Watching Act that's already in existence, simply because we are at a moderate flood. Still is a dangerous situation that we're managing to deal with. Other things I just want to talk about is trees. We're getting a considerable number of trees falling over. The roots are waterlogged. If we do get the thunderstorms, please stay inside, not just the rain, but trees. The waterlogs are, I guess, the roots are waterlogged, and we are getting some fairly large river red gums now falling over. So just be wary, not only for the intense rain, but be wary around trees if we do get the thunderstorm activity, because a little bit of wind will certainly make the rain, the trees fall over, which is not what we want either. Look, Other quick things are, for those we are pumping a fair bit of water out of Knights Road, Toowoomba and Lenny Street. We'll be pumping the next couple of days. We are looking at penstocks to see if we can open the penstocks because the river has fallen enough where they might be open, so we are trying to get the water out of Mooroopna through pumping. We had to have 2 pumps there, see if we can open the penstocks to release the water as well. So that's, I guess, from Mooroopna, we are trying to, reduce the water level, or where it's still sitting around town in the mix. I guess that's a quick overview, Peter, and questions there later on.
Yeah,
that's a quick overview of what's happening.
Thanks, Ray.
In the area.
As Ray said, he's one of the incident controllers at the Incident Control Centre in Echuca Road. It is probably the most intense working environment that I've seen in a long time, and lots of fantastic work being done. That's the decision. Ray and his team have got the responsibility to make decisions rapidly based on the advice and information coming through with support from a whole team. So it's excellent work. I'll pass now to Sergeant Natalie Judd from the Victorian Police to give us an overview of what the police have been up to.
Yeah, I'm one of the local station commanders here at Mooroopna. Just in regard to roads and road closures, there's still a number of road closures, that being about around 80 in and around the area. The traffic management points are no longer being manned by police, but local contractors and just signage. The Murchison Bridge has been reopened to locals. I believe that's still current. Only locals. I'm led to believe that there were traffic management points in place being manned by a private company or a contracted company. But there's still people who are not locals who are trying to get themselves through and across through that area, which we're requesting that people don't do. It's just for the locals for the time being. So respect those barriers if you're down in that way. The causeway between Mooroopna and Shepparton is currently open, as you probably all know. Speed limit of 40 kilometres an hour. We all understand that that's very frustrating speed, but those speeds are in place for particular reasons, and that is that there's still obviously damage and things that need to be repaired, and we don't want compounding collisions and things like that. So please respect the speed limits. The Catamount Shep Road is partially closed between Kingupna and Morangi townships. Look, that's it in regards to traffic management. Just please, everybody, we know it's frustrating. You can't get to areas that you want to be, but be respectful of the contractors who are there in place. They're there for a reason. It's not just to annoy everyone. It's got to do with damage to roads and contractors being in there trying to get life back to normal as soon as possible.
Thanks, Natalie. And as I said the other night, we observe a lot of police from outside the region that have come to support us, and they're doing fantastic work, so thank you. Yeah,
just leading on to that, we've got a lot of police up from Melbourne and areas just in and around. We're aware that there is some crime that's related to our flooded areas and residential areas businesses. They are here to provide extra police assistance to us. Just if you've got people who are loitering around and you think they're up to no good, please let us know. And we have arrested already a couple of people in regards to some crime in our local area.
Okay, thanks, Natalie. Every speaker is important here tonight, but river and rain, very important, of course, and we're all interested to know what's happening in that regard. So we've got Guy Teeney, the Statutory Planning and Floodplain Manager from the Goulburn Broken Catchment Management Authority. Guy, over to you.
Thank you, Peter. We had a briefing today at 1 p.m. and the Bureau provided some updates. I've just run through some of those numbers for you now. Sunday, we are seeing some developing thunderstorm activity in the northwest part of the state. We see embedded, isolated totals, possibly up to 50 mil, but generally rain in the order of 20 mil. But other than that, well, outside those areas, 2 to 5 millimetres. Going into Monday, we've got general rainfalls between 5 and 15 millimetres. In the north and western districts around the Dividing Range, up in the northern slopes, we could see some of those thunderstorm activities. Again, unpredictable and quite patchy. And generally 15 to 30 mil, and some high totals, unpredictable and patchy in the divide. Going into Tuesday, the range will contract over Gippsland. You won't see many totals across there. Useful bit of information, I'll just go through a couple of upstream sites. Goulburn Murray Waters decided to throttle back the outflows of 38,000 megalitres a day, Eildon downstream. That's happened end of last week. Now the ramp down even further to 28, now down to 23. We just got advice through email. They've been running the river now at 15,500 megalitres a day, and that's going to reduce even further from 6 p.m. tonight down to 12,000 megalitres a day, which is really good news. So not adding to those rainfall totals. Murchison, to put it in context, Murchison's at minor level now. With these rainfall figures we're looking at, it's going to stay in that minor range and under moderate. It did peak at 12.01 metres on Murchison gauge, and we're currently around about 9.9. So moving to Shepparton, Ray already filled us in at the moment, so we can probably see Ray. We've got 10.49 when it was at a peak of 12.06, and with the renewed rainfall, we see some rises, but not expected to go to 11. And leave it at that, I think. Thank you, Peter.
Good on you, Guy. Thanks for that information. That's sounding positive. We've added a couple of speakers to the panel for this session, and the next one is Daniel Irwin, the General Manager of Strategy and Services Planning with Goulburn Murray Water. Daniel.
Thanks, Peter. So just an update on GMW's operations as of today. So we're obviously continuing to support the response activities as the flood from the Goulburn makes its way down through the Murray into Echuca, and that involves some work that we're currently supporting on drainage structures in the Canyapella area. We're continuing to operate the Lochgarry structure consistent with our operating rules, and that means at the moment the bars are being replaced in that structure. The number and timing of when those bars goes in is related to the gauge height and focused on the receding river here based on the Shepparton gauge. As of 4 o'clock today, there remains 99 bars to be installed, and the timing of when they would be installed is also linked to the Shepparton gauge and the time that will elapse of 24 hours before we install those based on gauge heights. We do have crews mobilising to the Lochgarry site tomorrow who will be focused on levee repairs. So there's 2 breaches in that levee that we will be able to access and will repair tomorrow. And then obviously from a GMW perspective, we will also move into a recovery phase around assessing further assets across our networks, so our irrigation network, drainage network, obviously continuing to monitor our storages and any other infrastructure along the rivers and creeks. As both Ray and Guy have mentioned, our river operations team is also continuing to monitor and manage those storage releases at Eildon and Goulburn Weir, keeping an eye on what's expected to happen with these weather patterns in the coming days as well. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Daniel. The next one we've added to the panel is the Department of Health, and tonight we have Alan Brown, the Manager of Emergency Management. Alan.
Thank you very much. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. I'd just like to say thank you for having me here today, and hopefully I can answer any of the questions that you've got. I'd like to begin by talking about the support services that are available and have been embedded into the Shepparton Showgrounds Primary Care Clinic. That's open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We have a GP and nursing facilities there, along with AV Support Ambulance Victoria. So encourage anyone, if you do need to seek some primary care services, that system is available. We're currently working with our health services to support them to keep staffing in line with the demands and needs of the community. We're also working on some funding arrangements to help support long-term recovery and around how our health services function. So there's been a $77.3 million health and education recovery fund support for 28 health services and an estimated 23 schools affected by the floods, so that will go into that support, and the funding will initially repair and start working on those health services alongside with others. We do have a range of temporary facilities, which I just mentioned before, around the showgrounds, in particular to Shepparton, that are available to help support care needs moving forward. In terms of public health risks and initiatives, I just want to really highlight the risk around mosquitoes. At the moment, I know there are a few around. I've definitely had a few bites myself. So as the water starts to recede and we see some of that pooling of water and stagnant water, that risk will increase. So remember, just a bit of a reminder to keep long clothing on and use your repellents. We do have available for the area around Japanese encephalitis vaccines for the Greater Shepparton area, and there are mechanisms for getting those vaccines as well through your GP clinics and funded through the LPHU unit. So we will provide some information around that, and there will be some information out the front on that as well. And just last but not least, just some information will be provided around how to manage some of the health risks around removing mould from homes and how to best protect yourself and your family when undertaking those works. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. Our next speaker is from Agriculture Victoria, Mick O'Keefe, Manager of Emergency Management. Mick.
Thank you. I guess the focus of the work that we've been doing has been outside of the townships, looking at impacts on agricultural farms, primary production. Most of the work we're doing is done remotely, so I guess we're reliant on the intelligence coming back from affected landholders in the area. And I guess there's a key number around reporting any urgent animal welfare needs through the Vic Emergency Hotline, 1800 226 226. We've got a number of people in control centres around the state, so we're able to triage those calls through to some local resources. The Victorian Government has announced a $19.5 million primary producer immediate flood relief program for primary producers impacted by floods. The program comprises of a one-off $10,000 grant payment to impacted primary producers, transport subsidies to impacted primary producers, and concessional loans for primary producers. I guess when people are contacting the hotline, any information is good, but if people have an understanding of property location, or if they are the affected landholder, if they can also provide their property identification code, that really helps us speed up the process of identifying the correct property and working out how to get in contact with people quickly. From a local perspective, I guess we're also working to collect intelligence on livestock particularly that may be stranded in floodwaters. So we're collecting that information to work out how we can, I guess, get feed into those animals, either working with the landholder or neighbours. That's another key part of what we're up to. And I'll be here afterwards to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mick. We're going to shift to power now. Simon Goss is the Project Manager and Senior Supply Quality Officer with Powercor. Simon.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. From a Powercor perspective, we're actually sitting pretty good. Right at the moment, we've got no known faults at all in the area. In fact, the nearest single faults are up in Barmer Town, so nothing around the Shepparton or Greater Shep area. We've actually got all customers on. They're all being supplied from other zone substations. Just up the road here at Mooroopna Zone Substation, we've been working round the clock, building, extending levees, testing, cleaning, pumping out, replacing, and as of about an hour ago, we re-energised the power to the zone substation. That doesn't mean we're supplying anyone from it, but we have got it back alive. Later on this week, we will start to do transfers back onto our 22 kV network, so swapping customers back onto the zone substations that they belong to. We're hoping not to have any outages or inconvenience people. We should be able to do most of it. However, if we do, we will endeavour to be trying to contact customers by SMS or other media services. Look, to be honest, that's about all we've got from Powercor. Everything's pretty good, and we're ploughing ahead. Thank you.
Gosh, great work, Simon. You come a long way from where we were only a few days ago or a week ago, so that's fantastic. Water and sewer, a lot of work happening here as well. Daniel Flanagan is the General Manager of Operations. Daniel.
Thanks, Pete. So I'll break it into two and talk about water and sewer separately and focus particularly on Mooroopna, as I covered Shepparton the other night. So the water supply for Mooroopna is supplied from our Shepparton water treatment plant. It's safe, it has been safe, we've had no interruptions to that water treatment plant, so there's been no issues with the water, and I just want to emphasise that that is safe to drink and to use however you see fit. There are no supply issues with that either, so we're monitoring that plant and we don't envisage there to be any issues with the water supply. With our sewer, that is a bit more challenging for us during the flood. For Mooroopna specifically, we have been working to bring our sewer pump stations back online. We've got our main pump station back online at the roundabout there at McKean Street, and we had a bypass in play for the last few days. We're now operating back on the normal pump station. It's allowing us to clear a big portion of the sewer within Mooroopna, but we obviously still have some issues that are around that southwest area of Mooroopna. So that is the area south of the Midland Highway and west of Toolamba, so that pocket within Mooroopna, which is your Lenny Street type area. So we have mainly a pump station there that remains underwater and we're unable to access. So those residents within that area will still be experiencing their sewer being slow to drain, might be gurgling and doing those types of things. So it will get away, but it will be very slow. If you have any acute issues within your home, please give us a call on our faults number. So jump on the website and you'll be able to see that. We do have some areas where we know of some spills out of manholes, and we're getting around to those with a vacuum truck in that area, and we're trying to clean them up as best as we can, and we're notifying residents within the immediate vicinity. So please be mindful of that. There is some sewer around. We're trying to limit it as much as possible, but please do avoid any contact with it. Once we see that water go down within the Lenny Street sort of Smith Park area, we will be able to get in there and we will be able to put in place a bypass pump to be able to return that to its normal service, and then we'll get in there and start looking at replacing switchboards and the like. So really, it's that southwest area of Mooroopna where unfortunately we are still seeing some interruption to sewer service. That's probably about it.
Yeah, thanks Daniel, nice work. Next is ERCs, or our relief centres and recovery. We are obviously moving into a recovery phase, and we have Louise Mitchell, our Director of Community and our Emergency Management, Greater Shepparton City Council. Louise.
Great. Thanks, Peter. And I'm sorry to be here talking to you under these circumstances. Just looking out, I can see a lot of familiar faces, and would also acknowledge that we know that 36 hours after this flood event was a really difficult time for you all, so that's certainly not lost on us. Look, I do have a bit to get through. I've been asked to talk about relief centres, recovery, medical and food relief, so a bit to cover there, so I'll probably stay with you a little bit longer. Just want to observe there's been a lot of examples of community supporting community, and very much so in this particular community here with and MEAC playing a particularly leading role. Council's got an important role here, but there's a lot of people involved in this space. So just on emergency relief centres, the numbers in the relief centres have really dropped significantly. We've got down to under 50 people at Macintosh over the river, and just over 20 people at Echuca at the moment. I suspect that's dropped a lot since these figures were counted up this morning. Really, this is happening because people who are in a position to make their way home are doing that, or if they're able to find other accommodation, they're doing that as well. Nonetheless, we'll keep the emergency relief centres open for a little longer. Just on food relief and case management, we're very keen to make contact with people who are not able to return home safely, who are really out of options. And there's a few different ways you can do that. You can do it via an emergency relief centre. I would suggest that you can do it by making contact with MEAC here in Mooroopna as well. You can contact the council customer service channels, and we're setting up some online forms that people can jump in and fill out as well if that's your circumstance, and obviously we're very sorry if that is. In 2 days, Food Share and GV Cares partnered to deliver over 1,800 food packs in the community, with a lot more provided in recent days. We've also had Ethnic Council and Point of Difference Studio providing a lot of support direct to community there. And translators are in place at the emergency relief centres, and Ethnic Council also having a presence in those centres. So really trying to build up our support to our multicultural communities. Just ticking off a few things. Shepparton Family and Financial Services are working with community here too. That's an option for you as well. So you can go to MEAC for some of these supports, or you can go to Shepparton Family and Financial, and you should receive much the same service. We've got contact details on all the website. I won't go through them all now. I'm here afterwards if you want any of those details. They're also on the website, of course, and our social media channels. On medical, Ellen's covered a bit of this already, but we do have a medical clinic established at MEAC for your community. We have a GP in place, a wound clinic with a nurse, mental health support, and a podiatry clinic, I think, is opening tomorrow, Jan? Yep. And also that Paul Wickham Pharmacy's back online, and a pathology service will be available there tomorrow. So some good support starting to really form up around your community. The Macintosh Centre also has most of those services in place as well. Now, just looking ahead a bit more to recovery, we'll be looking to obviously work with MEAC and also Murchison Neighbourhood House to build up our supports there. Sometimes there's a bit of confusion about what relief is versus recovery. So relief centres are really that life-preserving service where people can sleep, grab food, that kind of thing. Recovery is more looking to the future, and what help do you need to start to try and get back to where you were and start to look ahead as well. So we'll be looking again, working with Jan and her team to try and form up some of those supports in this community. Recovery takes in many areas, and it's starting to take shape for us in our planning. So it's covers off on waste, which I believe we'll be getting to shortly, so I won't address it. Clean up, property assessments, environmental health, and just community planning, and giving you the opportunity to have a say in where does our community go to from here. So just going to work through a few areas if you'll bear with me. So environmental health. So food premises in Mooroopna, most of them haven't been inundated, thankfully. Environmental health team have done a lot of inspections, and most have been good to go, and perishable foods have been disposed of, things like that. That includes Woolworths and Aldi, so this is very good for food security in your patch. Similarly, the Murchison businesses are tracking well here, which is really great news for them. Personal hygiene, Ellen touched on this as well, so making sure we're using gloves, PPE if you're handling kind of wet objects that have had floodwater on them, that kind of thing. A lot of hand washing is going to be very helpful. Mosquitoes, personal insect repellent is really paramount. Preventing mould, really important one for your health in the home. The guidance I've got just today from our environmental health team is things like, get wet items away from the walls if you can, perhaps preferably outside the house. Ventilation and airflow is what you want. So, open windows and doors and get that air flowing. If there's stuff around the bottom of the outside of the house that's going to interrupt airflow underneath the house, if you can just sort of shift that out of the way as well. And a hot tip as well was spraying anything that looks like you might be in that territory with 1 part bleach to 4 parts water, if you can manage that. So just in terms of property assessments, initial impact assessments are underway, and that starts to give us a bit of intelligence about which properties are affected and to what level. So this is going to be an important process, obviously, and that helps our environmental health team start to hone in on supporting you through the specific issues and what might need to happen at each property. There's a secondary assessment process that starts to really hone in on the detail from there. So it's a little bit of a process that's got a way to play out for some. Just a couple of final points on business continuity. So our maternal and child health's back up and running. We're trying to get childcare up and running again where we can. Some of our childcare centres have been impacted and kinders have been impacted. So for example, we know Echuca Road's been pretty badly impacted, and that won't be opening anytime too soon, but thankfully other centres like Frank Puller are looking pretty good. So we'll open those as soon as we can, and we'll be sending text messages to parents so that they can get their lives back on track, get the kids back to childcare and get things going. Just a few quick shout outs. Mooroopna Football Netball Club. Lighthouse GV Cares, Food Share, Ethnic Council, Point of Difference Studio, Well Wise Women, MEAC. Also, don't think Jacobson's, Dyson's and Balfour's have had a lot of public recognition for the amazing work that they did during the evacuation process. So our local bus companies really stepping up under some pretty difficult circumstances and moving people around. I couldn't be more grateful for that, and I know that I would be speaking for ICC, I'm pretty sure, in that. Then finally, Rumballara, again, GV Pride, you know, all of the supports that our community need really stepping up. Okay, I think I've had the floor for a long time now. I'll hand back. Thanks.
Good on you, Louise. You had a lot to cover there and a lot of important information. So the final set piece is drainage, clean-up and waste, and that goes to me. The drainage we've sort of covered a bit. I think we know the hotspots in Knight Street and Lenny Street, all the pumping out at those locations, and with great support by Goulburn Valley Water, the CFA, Ray is at the forestry group that are working on that as well. They're doing fantastic work. I think at Lenny Street we've got 3 pumps plus our fixed pump, and now there's a 4th or 5th big thing being put in there. Couldn't pump the water any quicker than what we've currently got there. The drainage is, the systems are designed for very small rain events, and normally they cope. In a big event, they allow the water to spill out on the road, and then the pumps gradually take the water away. In a massive flood like we've had, you get a whole heap of overland flow, which is just totally different. That's where you see the lakes, the big volumes of water that just smash us, and that's what we're trying to deal with at the moment, to pump those very large volumes of water. But we're going as fast as we can collectively. The clean-up, I think the clean-up's going reasonably well. I guess there's always room for improvement, and you'll talk to us about that. Gary Randwa, our Director of Infrastructure, City Engineer, is here, coordinating the bins and all that sort of stuff. And as we mentioned, the footy club just smashed it yesterday. Fantastic effort. But we'll continue that. Now, we're going to see people take their time. Okay, people have initially put out a whole heap of rubbish, and they'll take their own time, work out when they need to clean up, when their insurance assessors have dealt with their buildings, and we'll be there to just progressively clean up. But we'll have a big crew here from the Victorian Government tomorrow, Gary, is that correct? Still on target, thank you. So pass the word round. If anyone hasn't put out their rubbish onto the street, get them to put that out, and tomorrow we'll have another big go at it. But then we'll have regular crews just going around, picking up. It's so important that we do keep the place clean from a health point of view, to assist you in your recovery and to manage it, because we've got big volumes going to our transfer stations, and we've got to limit the hours a little bit so that we can unload those and get that out to the landfill and that sort of thing. But I think that's generally going okay. I'm going to pull it up there, and it's more important to hear questions from the audience and see if we can answer those. We've got a number on the screen that are coming in because this is being live. I should have mentioned that as well. We're live streaming, but we're going to go to the audience first. Right here, yes.
Firstly, I'd just like to thank you guys for the work you're doing. I know you're being smashed, and you can only do what you can do, and I know you're working tirelessly to help our communities. And Peter, I think you've pretty much answered the question. It's like 4 weeks down the track. What do our people do when they're actually coming back to their homes, and the initial burst of energy's happened and there's nothing else much out there? So that's what I'm asking.
There's going to be a number of questions. Have I got the capacity to do the works I need to do? Do I need to relocate somewhere in the interim? What sort of assessment do I need? Is it going to be a 12-month or a 2-year thing? All those questions got to be answered. So there is right throughout this event, there's sort of been peaks, and it was sandbags to start with, and it was something else, and then it's the clean-up. and now we're looking at this peak of accommodation.
Yep.
People needing temporary, that might be a week, it might be 3 months, it might be 12 months accommodation. So we're putting together a strategy on that, and we'll call upon assistance and ideas from everybody as to how we do that. We know that housing is short, rental accommodation is short. So we're going to have to be creative and think of a whole range of solutions, and they're coming through. I spoke to Susanna this morning about some of those, but just please talk to us. We need to collect the data. The data is so important to get a handle on the extent of the issue. Are there 500 houses that have been put underwater? Are there 100 houses of those 500 that you just can't go back to? We need that data, and it's got to be a little bit detailed so that we can plan for the accommodation. So, all good.
Yep.
That has been put forward as one of the ideas, so that will be considered, but we've got to consider all these solutions in relation to the facilities that are available, the security that can be provided, how many people are going in there, and we've got experience in running the emergency relief centres and how difficult it is to bring a big group of people together in one place. And we've just got to weigh that up against trying to find individual solutions. Maz, you have a question over there?
Yeah, hi. Oh, hi, Peter. Vicky Scott here. My question actually is in relation to people gaining access to information that's obviously accessible online. There's been a number of us here in the room today that over the last number of days we've been out in the ground, and there are a lot of people out there that don't have access to internet, etc. And for those people, and whilst it's been acknowledged that they can jump in their car possibly and go across to the Macintosh Centre, those people that have actually been flooded no longer have their car either.
Yep.
So is there something, and I know Lou and I, we spoke about this a bit earlier today, but the possibility of looking at setting up some satellite centres around the community, and or consideration given to maybe increasing some shuttle services to and from towns? Thank you.
Good question, and there's a lot in it. Louise or Ray might like to assist, but it's related to the recovery, and we will be setting up recovery facilities so it's easier for people to come locally. It relates to the cold community a little bit, Louise, and language services and that.
Yeah, that's right. So for those who are, for whatever reason, find it difficult to access digital communications, there's a lot of reasons why someone might not find it easy to do that. I would actually, my strong advice would be just to get connected up to the MEAC facility, because that's where you'll find that face-to-face support that you need. And people really, having spent some time at MEAC, people really do take the time to sit down and work through problems, very practical problems, whether it's accessing, completing the emergency relief payment applications, that kind of thing. It's a very caring place, and I would recommend it highly. There's also a number of other kind of community supports around. So I know, for example, Ethnic Council are very active in reaching out to local community members through their own networks. There are always going to be some people out there who are, for whatever reason, are maybe a little bit isolated from supports. We very much want to find those people and help them. So if anyone can help us in that process, without obviously breaching people's privacy and going over the top in that regard, I think it would be great to find them, and so we can start to help them.
Thanks, Louise. And Ray, the impact... So, hang on, mate. We'll just finish the question and I'll come to you. Ray, the impact assessment teams obviously are out there talking
and they give us
face
information,
to face.
but we can... so they've got some information, but we can look at potentially... We've done, I guess, information pop-up sessions outside some of the shopping centres, but we can look at getting to some of the impacted areas and doing some stuff there.
Yeah, okay.
Handing out some of our brochures and the relief.
Now, this gentleman was standing up probably first. Have you got a question? Yeah.
I've got a few things about Lenny Street.
Okay.
Where is it? There's a culvert just down from my house.
Yep.
Okay. All the water that is in the sports stadium and all like that, they're achieving nothing while that water is still in the sports stadium, because all that water's got to pass through from the sports stadium all the way through the reserve down to Lenny Street. If they had closed that culvert off, I have repeated myself the last 4 nights. Yeah. Close that culvert off, then they might be able to achieve something down at Lenny Street. Okay. Now you look at the footy fields, they're dry as a bone. You know, I've still got water, ankle deep in my house. You know, I'm one of the first houses that was flooded.
Yep.
And I want the water gone.
Okay.
But when you've got something like, as one of Goulburn Murray Water's bloke said to me last night, there'd be over 2 gigalitres of water in that footy oval. Those pumps are just fighting a never-ending battle because they've got to remove all the high stuff, and it's one culvert that's feeding everything.
Okay. Do you want to go and show me that after this meeting? And I'll come.
I'm more than happy to.
Thank you. And better off to have a
You
look
know,
at it.
COGS, the communication between COGS, the CFA, and that has been absolutely atrocious.
Okay.
You know, I know you're all trying to do something and that, but the biggest problem is you must probably getting decisions from Melbourne and they're not local.
Yeah, no, that's... Okay.
And another reason why this has happened, okay, with every new subdivision that goes in, every house gets built to the, you know, so as it doesn't happen. Yep. Those of us in the lower end up lower again.
Yeah. Look, I can talk to you about that. That's not quite the case, because modern subdivisions are designed to have the houses set high, yes, but they also accommodate for the water, the flood to go around those houses and for not to impact anyone else. They're modelled so that you cannot have adverse impact on anyone else. So I know that is a comment that's being made.
Hang on a sec. With what I've just said to you, it's no different than what's happened down at Maribyrnong. With the Flemington Racecourse. They've gone and built that big concrete wall, and all these people were, they've all been impacted because of Flemington Racecourse. You can run your horses.
Yeah, that was a wall that was built.
But that's my point.
Yep. I'll talk to you about that detail. So please. Okay. Yep. All right. Now, I'll answer your question, but I just want to finish with this. I'm just going to finish with this gentleman first, because we've agreed we'll come out and have a look at your problem.
Yep.
You're going to show me what you think is the
I've
solution.
got one other question for Daniel Irwin.
Okay.
Okay. Why is it, like, 2 of us took 2.5 hours to get to work the other day, okay, just to get across the causeway, okay, and then on the way home we come along through between the Gambia and Murchison. Why is it the Murray River's way up here and your channels are down here? Empty. Bloody near empty. And why?
Well, hang on. If we're going
that water,
okay,
those channels could take volume, heaps of volumes,
okay,
and it could have alleviated half the problem that we've got now.
Thank you. We're happy to answer the questions, and we're here to answer any question you want to put to us, but please ask them in an appropriate manner. You are. And we just need to hear them one at a time, okay? So thank you for your question. Daniel?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Look, the reality, Goulburn Murray water channels, in terms of the context of the floods that we're experiencing, hold very, very little water, a very little amount of water. Now, there are customers in other parts of the network who say, why have you got water in your channels? You know, so it's a real balancing act. Goulburn Murray water ultimately, you know, in the times of floods, we try and close our channels up so that flood water isn't impacting and isn't being funneled down the network into other parts. So if the floods come across into our network, we're trying to ensure that it won't continue down that channel system and flood another part of the floodplain unexpected.
So I need to go another question. We need the microphone for the people, otherwise the people live streaming can't hear. So we'll go to this lady.
I've got a number of questions. Rita Costa from Lenny Street. For myself and on behalf of a number of my neighbours who are still stuck in their homes. We are wondering, is there a place or somewhere that can be created, as Vicky said, for info for those whose homes are still being impacted because we're not all in evacuation centres. We need PPE, we need plastic tubs, we need cleaning products. We're not all internet savvy. And why are these donations seemingly being refused by council when we could be using them?
Yep.
The people in the evacuation centres might not, but we do. Also...
So we can get that...
Yep.
That support to you.
That would be great.
And we could, it's either via...
And I'm not saying that the centres aren't great, they are,
Yep.
but those of us impacted can't be expected to do the work of emergency services as well as the work we need to do for ourselves, okay?
We can certainly get that support to you, so there's the answer to that one.
So the where to get assistance, I've heard of these 23 agencies that have got the money. Who are they? Where will we be able to access that support? Can someone provide a list to us so that we can access it and it doesn't go into somebody's pocket that doesn't need it? How long till we can return?
Louise, can you answer the support question?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not quite
Some
sure.
agencies don't dole the money out. They load it, they do everything for their own agency, and I've worked for some of them and I've seen it firsthand. How much of this money is going to get to us that are genuinely affected?
It's a difficult question to answer because there's a number...
I get that, but I'm putting it out there for you guys to think about, okay?
Thank you. There's a number of those opportunities. You can go on the website, but it is...
Go on the website if you're 89 years old and have never used a computer.
It is difficult to follow, I'll give you that.
Sorry.
Yeah,
the people in my neighbourhood are asking what the QR codes are for.
We'll
never seen
try and clarify that information for you.
I'm also wondering how long till we can return in those low-lying areas, because some of the people have told me it'll be more than a month before my property is accessible again. And so I'm just wondering, because we're in the low-lying areas that were already flooded before this from the burst water main we've heard about, that everyone's throwing blame. It's councils, it's the water board, it's this... I don't care who it is, someone needs to do something about it, okay?
It is the crux question, and I fully expected it was going to be asked. How long is it going to take to pump Lenny Street out?
Why wasn't it done before so we could get some stuff out of our houses? That's another question.
I'll just try and answer the question of how long.
Because if it were any of your houses, would you have jumped up and down to do something? I'm pretty sure you would have.
I'll just try and answer the question about how long it will take, because that's what everybody wants to know.
Yes, we do.
Daniel probably got some idea on it, but we're thinking it's probably 5 days to a week. It just depends on how much rain.
Up to a month, I've been told.
It depends on how much rain is coming, okay?
Yep.
And that could add to it. It depends on how these pumps currently work. Now, we're observing this, on an hourly basis, and we'll come back to you and update that. But just by observation, the capacity of those pumps, how they're working at the moment, and what we've seen the water go down, that's our best guess, around about 5 days. But with this new pump going, it could be less. I don't want to be, give you a false hope, but
I don't have much hope at the moment, mate, so you're not giving me any false hope, because
we'll give you
I don't have much.
We'll give you updated information as much as we can. I'll go back down there tonight and see how the pumps are going, and, if you want to meet me down there, we'll talk about it.
Also, the drains, the lack of maintenance and upgrades, is that the council or GV Water who are responsible? Is there some other agency? Can you work it out amongst us and do something about it? Because I ring almost weekly in winter because our street cannot cope with regular rain from the sky, let alone floods. And I've spoken, you at council would know, you would have heard my voice calling and saying my street is flooded again. Again.
Stormwater drainage is council.
Right. And why was the info given prior so wrong and inadequate for us to prepare to be out of our homes for so long? Why were we told to prepare for something around the 1970 floor levels when this is nothing like that? Why was that? Why did no one knock on our doors and tell us to evacuate? Not just me, my elderly neighbours, who out the front of my house, the water would have been above my daughter's head. If we hadn't left when we did, she would be dead.
Okay, please let me answer that one. We've been giving advice in relation to this major event for many, many weeks, and we've had several sessions, including one at the Macintosh building several weeks ago where Guy spoke about what was expected, and the river hadn't even come up then. But Guy, can you comment on the 1974 event? The lady said that she doesn't believe it was near the 74 event. Can you comment on that?
When you say it wasn't anywhere near 74, you're saying this event was smaller?
My neighbours who lived there in the 74 floods told us what to expect, what they had, what happened at that time. This is nothing like it. The water came in, went out. It didn't flood all the way up to Homewood Street. So it's been a wider event. It's hung around for longer.
Yeah.
The whole thing's very different.
Okay,
Did
can
you
I just
guys have
clarify?
no idea at all that this was going to be different?
my-
Because we were told maybe 10 centimetres higher to expect, which is what we planned.
So what you're saying to me, the 2022
Well, my
flood-
house should be
Can
above
I answer the question?
74.
Can I ask a question, please? You're saying this flood was much larger than 74? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Now, can I just say that the floods we experienced coming down the Murchison and Shepparton Gauge, no two floods are the same. We've all heard that before, but I must say this particular event was very unusual in terms of its drawn out volume of water. The volume of water in this flood was immense, much more than 74. It hung around more, it got in the stormwater system, percolated through the stormwater, and I agree, water did extend further in 74, and I have no doubt about it.
Having said that, the flood modelling, the flood maps are very accurate.
So why didn't sandbags get delivered to us in the red
catchment-
zone when we requested
the catchment management...
Because we did and nobody
Just
came.
one at a time, please. The Catchment Management Authority's flood intelligence portal that you can go into, put your address in and identify your floor
If you're
level
IT savvy.
is very accurate. So that information has been there. Yes, okay.
A
I
couple
appreciate
more
that.
practical things. Sorry, if
I was able to get that information. Just prior to this happening, my missus spent hours and hours trying to get that information and we could not find it.
yeah.
Okay. The question there for the audience out there that may not have heard the question was about the difficulty in getting this online information. So we are hearing that and hearing that loud and clear. Now,
Can I just
I do
ask,
need to go
with the
to
power
other
poles,
questions.
if
I'll give
trees
you
are
one more.
falling over, will power poles, like my street's been flooded for almost 3 weeks now.
Yep.
So should I be concerned about that out the front of my property
About power
falling
poles and
over?
electricity?
You know, power poles and electricity I'm very concerned
Yep,
about,
okay.
but that's why I delivered the neighbours' numbers that nobody else
So
has
Simon,
bothered
I'll go to you to answer that.
Yeah, look, in relation to power poles, Lena, it is always a problem after a flood, as you can imagine, with a lot of the wet footings. We are actually doing an enormous amount of patrolling, both physically on foot and using drones and even helicopters to ensure that our lines are actually safe. We do appreciate that we can't get to every single pole, but we are getting there, and we will be inspecting, making any temporary repairs or holding them, and figuring out how to replace them. So a lot of this is like being able to get in, assess them, and then organise works. And that does also rely around the water receding far enough to carry them out.
Thanks, Simon. So whilst we're on power, I'll just go to 2 questions on the screen here. Have Powercorp put a good structure around the power station? I think everybody would be interested in that.
Yeah, that is actually a good point, and we have been working actually round the clock for several days, sandbagging, widening and raising the level. We're actually, I think the lowest point around Mooroopna Zone substation is now about 12.5 metres. Yeah. Part and parcel of their outwork
so there was a
of
query
actually this
about
flood
whether-
will be to look at that and figure out how we're going to be able to do this in the future. So that is exactly correct.
There was a query... Sorry, mate. Yep.
People's life supports and homes. So when that goes down, we got no water pump, the power goes out today, and it's critical that you guys, I think even the substation in Shepparton, the one in the rivers in nearly in Gamble Swamp, now that's in a ridiculous place, isn't it?
Yep. So I've just got to note that we've got a live streamed audience and So the comment being made is that we've got to secure our essential services with more than, dirt, bunding. It's got to be structurally sound, and it's got to be built to the 1 in 100 level. It's got to be professional, and that's a very, very good comment.
Through 74, 93, 2011. This year, I worked with Shire Rodney.
Yep.
We went through all this with you guys in 93.
Yep.
And we're still going over the same issues.
So it's one of the, thanks, mate. Sorry, it's one of the packages we're putting to the government to ensure that those essential services are protected from a flood. Now, I might just go to the Echuca question. Will the planned works for Powercore still go ahead in Echuca on the 25th?
At this stage, yes, it is the intention to continue on with any planned works. Unless there's something else that happens or a further run event or something, we do plan to do those works.
Okay, we've got a gentleman in.
It's for everybody. I know everyone's putting in massive hours and whatever. But there's another issue we need to look at when this is all over and done with, and that's pointed at that Golden Murray Water with the Lochgarry system out there. Levee banks failed everywhere out there. They haven't been, no maintenance on them for probably 30 years. The actual bars out there are probably as old as Noah's Ark. They need to be brought into the 21st century with, they could do it from home. Why guys are going to go out there and put their lives on the line and pull them bars out? I knew guys that worked there in 93 and they were frightened to stand on that structure when it got, why it's got to get to 10.36 for 24 hours and back up all the way to bloody wherever, then that's the agreement, I know that, but that agreement needs to be looked at seriously.
I've got your question about Lochgarry.
Yes.
Give it an initial comment, but Lochgarry is a question that could take us 3 days to talk about.
Yeah, but it needs to be looked at. They talked about this in 93, no doubt 74. Here we are again.
It's clearly on our issues to talk about going forward. I'm just saying for tonight's purposes, Daniel might be able to give some initial comments, but...
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have effectively committed to doing a review of those operating rules, as we get through.
Yeah, but I've heard all this before too.
Yeah, well, and so I guess quite publicly we're making that commitment that we will be reviewing those operating rules, and we need to do that in consultation, obviously, with those local customers and the relevant agencies.
Well, apparently one of the local customers tried to contact you guys to release the bars early. How much pressure that would have took off everybody, I do not know. I haven't got the figures. But obviously it'd have to be something. Maybe it not got that high. I don't know.
I might be able to...
I'm not a water expert.
Yeah, okay.
But
look, we might...
I think if you got water that's backed up there for days at 10.36, it's got to have an effect. Yeah, or am I stupid?
Your question, and we'll move on. But I'll say that's a big...
Thank you.
That Daniel is going to lead coming up. But Guy, the actual impact of Lochgarry on Shepparton because of the distance from here, I think you've commented on that in the past.
Yeah, look, you're dead right. That relationship between the 24 hours of pulling the Lochgarry bores, when you get to 10.36, there's an assumption as soon as you pull the bars out of Lochgarry, the levels in Shepparton Mooroopna drop. It's too far downstream, the heights are too steep, and there's never going to be any reductions in flood levels by the release of Lochgarry regulators. It's been modelled, it's been proven, and it's simply not true.
All right, thank you. Now, there's a number of hands up. Appreciate that very important people that need to get and work on the Echuca flood that's peaking right at the moment, and decision makers here, they need to get and do their job. We will keep going for a little while, but I'll need to pull it up. Now, it looks like Peter. No? Can we just mic you up, please? Thanks, mate.
I experienced the marvellous things I did at the Tata Vac Centre, and we got there just before the power failure. Now, quite a few hours after that, it became apparent the mobile phone services had all gone down. And initially, it was hilarious watching people have a meltdown because they couldn't get on their phone. But is there any explanation, does anybody on here know, and something so essential as mobile phone service, why it went down for so long? Yeah. Everybody was doing their heads in here and they couldn't communicate. And
Yep.
we didn't have mobile service out at TAT for quite some time.
Ray, can you answer
Can anyone answer that?
Yeah, okay.
I remember it, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I remember that. I know that there was a...
I think it was to do with the bandwidth of the mobile service. When the internet went down, everyone's Wi-Fi went down,
Right.
so the mobile network couldn't handle the extra load.
Okay, thanks, mate.
Thank you.
This gentleman and lady have been asking for a while, so we'll go here, please. Someone pass the mic over. Thank you.
Hi. Ooh. Sorry, everyone. I'm a Mooroopna. My house got flooded pretty much like everyone else's, I'm assuming. So from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry. Mine is a health question, though. Our insurance company seems to be useless and has not assessed our property. I have children and floating floorboards, and I'm concerned of mould growing up in the lining. I've ripped up the carpet, but I'm really concerned about mould all through my house.
Yeah, a very good question. Mould, we've got to be careful of asbestos too, is the other big one I wanted to talk about. There's information online about asbestos and on mould, so read that. You know,
I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you afterwards, and I've got some printed out information as well. So happy.
Thank you. I only brought it up because I know there's a lot of people like us who don't know what to do. My neighbour, her landlord told her to leave everything in the house, and the house is mouldy, everything's disgusting. And I'm concerned for their well-being, as well as others who might not think about the underlying problems of mould.
Yeah, it's a very good point. We'll put as much information out as we can, but there's an offer to get direct information. Look, I'll take probably two more questions and then we'll have to wind it up. There's a lady in the red and a lady just there as well. Okay, there you go.
Thank you. Anyway, have a look at the, when you're going down, when you're going around and look at that other one.
I'll have a look at both those, thank you. Yeah?
Yep. Okay.
Yes, I will.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Now, I'm very fortunate, but my house didn't get the water through it. It had come within probably a half an inch coming into the back.
Yep.
And I live on the corner of Lenny Street and Toolamba Road. Now, my house was built in the 1920s. I only re-stumped it back to where it was, and I'm bloody glad that I did. When I bought this house, the people told me about the 74 floods and how it was, and they told me it broke out near the railway line in 74, and that's where all their problem was then, because it met up with what was coming through the flow-throughs, and now we have the exact same thing happened. All the water that come down Lenny Street came from the breakout on the railway line, meeting up with the flow-through from the park area. So all that water, I don't know whose problem it is, but that shouldn't have happened. There's a pipe there. It shouldn't have happened.
Yep.
And if it's happened in 1974, why did it happen again?
Yeah, good question. Look, and I think I met you on the street there. On the
Yeah, you
corner
did.
the
You
other
said
night.
to me, I believe it was you. You said it's an unprecedented event.
Yes.
Because we were standing out there concerned that people were flying through the floodwater and not knowing that they could aquaplane.
Yep.
And we were trying to prevent them
No,
doing this.
good comments, good question, good concern. Floods are so complex. It requires you and me and Guy to get together, and anyone else who's interested in their particular property, and we just sit down. You need to take the time. It doesn't have to happen tonight, and can happen over the next month or so. Sit down, have a good look at it, and we can explain to you how the flood works, how the mapping has modelled that. We'll talk about your floor levels, and through that, you'll be much better prepared for the next event that may come through.
I was very fortunate because, and I was able to stay in my home.
Yeah, so we make that offer to anyone, okay, to step you through it, and the better you understand it, the better. Now, I said two more, and we've got the two ladies, the lady there and the lady in the red. We'll make
Sorry.
the last question is the lady with the notebook.
I just have a
Susanna.
quick comment around another health issue, which is around the mosquitoes, which I'm really concerned about. I got Ross River fever in 2017 and I still live with that, and particularly right at the moment because I'm fatigued. So I'm very, very concerned for people not only now but for the future and for your future life, really, and your ability to work. So I really implore people to cover up, and I'm hoping that there can be some provision of insect repellent, whatever is required to try and protect people as much as possible. We talk about Japanese encephalitis. Yes, there's a big risk there, but it's the long-term health issues, and I'm really, really concerned, not only for our community here, the cold groups, for people's understanding. So I really implore you to think about that.
Yeah, great comment.
Provide a quick comment back on that. Absolutely, and couldn't agree more with you. There has been an investment that's been announced for $6.5 million towards better systems and prevention around controlling mosquitoes, mosquito-borne disease, and that includes Japanese encephalitis and the vaccine program that rolls out with that. So there has been some funding announcement for it as well. So
It's just to also mention things like Ross River fever. The year I got it, 2017, there was over 3,000 people in this region alone, in Greater Shepparton. And it's lifelong. You know, I'm going to have this for the rest of my life now, so please,
we've got some information sheets as well that will be ensuring are circulated to help with that as well.
It just, I guess,
Great
it needs to be more.
Thank
but
you.
anyway,
Thank you very
I'm
much.
happy to talk about it later.
Last question before I go to the screen for a couple of comments, and then the Mayor will sum up.
Talking to several people today who've had to leave their homes, we've ripped out all their carpets, taken all their hard rubbish collection, dumped it on the footpath, on the nature strip, not the footpath.
Yeah.
And their question is, especially around Carr Crescent, McKean Street, all this area,
Yeah.
when they go and lock their doors, but they're leaving their windows open to help ventilate because the mould, the stench is already horrendous.
Yeah.
People down in Carr Crescent backing onto Gemmell Swamp, my height, up to their hips.
Yep.
Okay? Now, if someone breaks into their home, they're all saying, what happens? Am I covered by insurance because I've left my windows open? One of them heard a sound coming from the neighbour across the street. Their house was already, evacuated, but he was across the road.
Yep.
And it was at 10:30 at night, and he went over and he disturbed someone who was trying to break in.
So
now,
we've heard-
what happens
Yep.
with the insurance?
Well, we've
As
heard
far
from-
as the police go...
heard from the police that they're doing a magnificent job stepping up in that space. And
No, what they want to know is,
Yeah.
are they leaving themselves wide open to having their insurance null and void because they've left the windows open,
Yeah.
even though the front and back door are locked and they might have that crim-safe security
Yep.
door. The windows are wide open. They're very old homes, built in the 1920s. They've only got timber frames.
Yep. No, I've got your question.
etc.
That's a very legitimate concern. Unfortunately, I can't answer it because I'd need to read every individual insurance policy to understand whether you are protected in that way. It's
I
just
thought the police
individual.
might have some ideas about that.
Susanna is probably got an answer.
Look, just that the Insurance Council of Australia have been sending MPs up-to-dated information about the whole range of things. So I reckon we could contact them. Various insurance companies have many brands under their auspice. So you might think you're just with one, but they own 10 different brands. So I will contact them tomorrow and ask them to start putting out some information about whether your flood cover covers all these sorts of things or whether you should be locking up. So we'll
Thanks,
do that
Susanna.
tomorrow.
That's a great response. All right, I am going to have to pull up the question.
Can I just ask one quick one, Peter? Normal rubbish collections will go back to when?
Yes, so that's the...
And can we keep putting, as you said, the rubbish that's been damaged and that out there, it'll continue to be
Keep
picked
putting
up?
the rubbish out. Gary will just continue a rolling program of picking that up. The bin services are back to normal. Please note that there's a very big workload in relation to the bins, so if they don't actually get there on that day, leave them out, and it might be the next day or it might be the following day, but we'll get there as soon as possible. But as as far as possible, they're back to the normal routine, whatever that is for your particular area. And that was the one there. I think, where else can we put rubbish if our bins are full? On the nature strip, we'll pick it up, or on the skip, the big skip bins that are placed around the place. And what do we do if there's water and we still, the trucks can't come in? Yeah, okay, we need to get this water down. It's just the big problem. It's, yeah, we've heard about it. We've got to get this water down so that we can not only get rubbish collection in, that we can get sewage services going and get everybody back to life. So I think, are we going to wrap it up with one more? Right, one more.
Hi. Dee from Homewood Park. I wasn't impacted, but I do know that there's a lot of residents that had so much trouble getting onto the flood report portal. I spent hours and hours on my computer sending it out to those who only had phones. Yep. But the other issue is, if we can, before this happens again, can we get that flood report information out in sale documents or something to property owners? Or a flyer, or a mail drop, whatever it is.
Now look, that's a very good question. We do have to make it the last one. I'm going to answer it, but anyone else with questions, please. I'm still here. I won't be going anywhere. I'll stay here and answer your questions, and as many of the panel will as well, but some have to go.
And I just have one little thing.
I've got to answer your question.
I'm going to throw one more in.
Yeah.
Snakes.
I've got to answer this one first.
Yep, okay.
I'll lose the train of thought. The portal, Catchment Management Authority did a great job. The portal was smashed, and they somehow put an additional link on it, and you went to that link and it just worked. I don't know how they did it, but that got back on track very quickly. Now going forward, I'm sure the Catchment Management Authority are going to do some work to make that easier. And the other thing they're doing, in partnership with Council, is doing a full survey of floor levels. So there will be a round of consultation, I'm sure, Guy, in relation to that study, and it's going to be front and centre over the next 3 months, floor levels and how they relate to flooding. So it'll be, the lady's gone, but all that conversation, the lady's there, all that conversation about flooding and flood modelling, floor levels, it's going to be front and centre for the next 3 months. So final question.
Snakes.
Snakes.
Okay, we haven't been impacted, but there is a lot of people online noting that they've got snakes coming up either to their houses or in their roofs, and they don't have the financial capability to call a snake catcher. Who do we call?
Yeah. Good question.
DLWP on their website mentioned something about, they have a service of some sort.
Don't call me.
But we do need to know who to call in that situation, because we've had 7-foot browns in our street.
Okay, can I take that on board?
Yes.
We'll find something and get something out. Over to you, Shane.
All right, thanks. We'll wrap it up. Thanks for that, Peter. Obviously, thank you to our CEO for chairing that, and the number of panel members being here tonight. They're extremely busy, so grateful to have you here. And as we said at the last session, it's bring the best people together to give you all as much confidence as you possibly can to continue on this this process of recovery as well. So thanks for being here. Obviously, I can't go again without acknowledging the emergency service people that are out there still doing the power of work in our community across all different levels as well. So thank you to those guys as well. Look, Louise made mention of some people that are doing some really good stuff in our community across a vast range of different organisations. I want to back that up as well. But adding to that, the volunteers in our community. I mean, it's been unbelievable. We spoke about it earlier. Keep your applause going. I know he's here, Bill Dowling. We reached out, we spoke in the lead up to yesterday, and it's just simple. We're just getting things done. And that's what yesterday was about. And the Mooroopna Football Netball Club coming together, over 150 volunteers. That's what it's about. We just got to get things done, and we're doing that. We're listening to you. We're going to take it all on board, and we're going to get things sorted for you moving forward. But as always, calmness, patience. We're going to get through it. We're nearly at the end. Right, we're all here to support each other. This is one big community, and we've shown how strong we are when we come together. So please, let's support each other. We're going to keep moving forward. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being here, and good night.